Hiya, welcome to my channel if you're new. If not, welcome back. This one was requested by a subscriber or a viewer a wee while back. I don't remember who. I'm really sorry. If you're watching, please leave a comment. And the request was, could I make a video on Cancer rising or Cancer ascendant? Rising and ascendant are the same thing, by the way, but on their eyes, which is quite quirky and interesting. So yeah, here's my response. But before we go deeper, like into the eyes, if you don't know what we mean by Cancer rising, you can simply remember the Wikipedia definition, which tells us that the rising sign is, and I quote, the zodiacal sign and degree that is ascendant on the eastern horizon at the specific time and location of an event, end quote. Now, since we're talking about people, that specifically timed event is your birth. So you need to know your approximate birth time or get your birth time rectified by a professional astrologer if you don't know it. On the website that I use to calculate birth charts, astrotheme.com, your rising will be marked up. It'll be marked by the uppercase letters A, C, located on the far left of the chart. It's important to iterate as well that just because you're a Cancer sun, i.e. your star sign is Cancer, you may not be a Cancer rising. Once you've figured out your rising sign, you can locate on your birth chart exactly where your first house begins. And the first house pertains to themes of the personal auras, personal worldviews, even the physical characteristics that you possess and immediately present. Because this request video is about the eyes of a Cancer rising person, the eyes then is typical first house astrology, which is interested basically in how a Cancer rising person looks. Theoretically speaking, a Cancer rising would look like a Cancer. And to describe this, we need to have studied the archetypes of Cancerian energy. Some common factors of Cancerian energy include maternity, sensitivity, and moodiness. Logically then, a Cancer rising might be described as someone looking maternal, sensitive, and moody. This may then be seen in their eyes. When you look into their eyes, Cancer is also a cardinal water sign, and so the Cancer rising might come across as regal, powerful, and assertive. That's the cardinal part, and yet they might also come across as soothing, passive, and empathetic. That's the water part. We are talking specifically about eyes in this video, but the Cancer rising might also have a more round or moon-shaped head or face. It might even be egg-shaped. The head or face is usually the first thing we focus on when we meet or encounter someone. And the first house also then pertains to beginnings and first impressions. And I'll always remember the way Jake Astrology here on YouTube, the way he described Cancer rising, stating that they have a resting, sad face. This does nod to the Cancerian tropes of being emotionally temperamental, of being needy, or even of being careful, which may then also be detected then when you look into a Cancer rising person's eyes. So once we have studied the archetypes of all 12 zodiac signs, we can start to theorize how each rising sign might look. However, first house astrology is a little bit more complicated. Your natal first house may not simply contain the zodiac sign of Cancer. Depending on where and when you were born, there may be other signs or parts of other signs also in your first house, as well as planets and other astrological markers. I like to think of natal or personal astrology as cocktail making or cocktail tasting. It is only when we are aware of all the individual's placements and how each placement is affected by other placements that we can know the ingredients of the cocktail and therefore appreciate how that cocktail is going to taste, which notes are stronger and which are more subtle. When we talk about house astrology specifically, It is then like having 12 different cocktails within your natal or personal astrology. Therefore, even if you are a Cancer rising, your first house cocktail might not taste so Cancerian if there's a lot more than just Cancer going on in there. And so your eyes might not appear so Cancerian. I would like to add that the moon sign is important to consider when trying to guess someone's rising sign, because the moon sign also contributes to what clothes or fashions or looks that we might find comfortable, therefore having influence on this aspect of the first house, even if the moon isn't in the natal first house. Let's take a look at my eyes first then, because I am a Cancer rising. You can tell us in the comments if you think I look particularly Cancerian. Besides, you don't need to tell us that I look tired, I know that. But, I also have Chiron, Jupiter and Leo in my first house. You might be able to see my Chiron rising as well, my Jupiter rising, and the little bit of Leo rising that I have in the first house. Theoretically speaking, when you look into my eyes, the first things you would get are my Cancerian energies, as well as my Chironic energies, because natally I have Chiron conjunct my Cancer rising. Conjunct just meaning when one placement is exactly on top of or within 3 degrees of another. Chiron rising, which by the way someone else requested I make a video on, so I will get to that too. But Chiron rising likely gives someone who looks kind of hurt or like helpful or like kind somehow, and it may be like a few seconds after being with me that you could or that you would get my sort of jovial, naive and smiley Jupiterian energies by looking into my eyes, because I have Jupiter not in Cancer but in Leo, where my first house starts to end. So it's the things that are closer to where your first house or any house begins that are probably going to be more apparent or stronger, and then it's sort of tailed by what comes after and what sort of is closer to the end of that house, if that makes sense. When we look into the eyes of a Cancer rising individual, or more generally are considering the personal appearance of a Cancer rising, it helps to know the other first house ingredients of that person if you want to fully get their first house cocktail. Again, don't forget about their moon placement, which should be factored in, not only for Cancer rising but all rising signs. I have my moon in Cancer, by the way, but it's in the 12th house. Now let's take a look at some well-known individuals who are also Cancer rising. First up is Angelina Jolie, who has Cancer and Leo rising. She also has an Aries moon, and she's always given us that sort of action, Lara Croft, Aries vibe. Like even when she's not acting as Lara Croft, she's always given me this sort of action gal appearance. Then we have Albert Einstein, who was a straight up Cancer rising, also with his moon in Sagittarius. And when I've looked at pictures of Albert Einstein, there are quite a few images of him like just showing his funny, dreamy, more Sag side, or even when he's not laughing or smiling, in the eyes perhaps you can still see that big, wide, dreamy Sagittarian, Jupiterian aspect. Kanye West is Cancer rising with Leo there too, and a Pisces moon. And to me, he often just looks spaced out, which is that sort of Piscean vibe right there. Bill Gates is interesting with Cancer rising, Uranus, Leo, and a moon in Aries. Uranus rising might be something that makes people look a bit nerdy or somehow like intelligent. Adele is straight up Cancer rising, which I don't know about you, but I totally see this. Like I'm just like in awe of the Cancer vibes coming out of her face. And she also has a Sag moon, and again you can spot in the eyes the big, wide and wild dreaminess of Sag. Kylie Minogue might be one of the trickier examples here in terms of guessing she's a Cancer rising, because she also has Leo, Virgo, her part of fortune, and her Jupiter in the first house. She also has a Gemini moon, so her like fashions may be very all over the place, and there's a lot going on, and she does give us this mix of seeming cheeky and playful. John Travolta has Cancer rising with Leo too, and a Virgo moon, and I definitely always read his like Virgoan uptightness. And Leo in the first house as well will, I think, often make the individual concerned about their hair. Whether they like love their hair or they're just like titillating with their hair. That's a very kind of Leo in the first house thing, I would say. If they are full on Leo rising, like they start with Leo rising, then they're going to be all about the hair. But in this case, I think as well, considering his like Virgoan energy, there's the titillation or the concern, the worry for the hair or for the facial immediate appearances. Cher has Cancer rising with Leo and Saturn rising, and she's also got a Capricorn moon. There's definitely a lot of dryness and I'm not very impressedness in her face. That also may stem from the sun in Taurus, that kind of I don't really give a shiz Taurian vibe as well. And Saturn rising should give someone whose skin and appearance ages very, very well. And this is even without the help of her Capi moon. George Michael had Cancer rising as well as his North Node and Leo rising. He had a Leo moon too, but in his second house. And I might add that a North Node rising person does come across as pained or lost. And the North Node deals with what we struggle to grasp in this life. It's where we're going and not where we've been. And it also sometimes describes, or is described by astrologers, as being about shortcomings that we might obsess over. Fergie has Cancer rising with Leo here too, and a Libra moon. And there's definitely like a moodiness and feistiness to her here. I don't know, what do you think when you look at Fergie or just consider Fergie over the years? Troye Sivan has Cancer rising and Leo too, as well as his moon in Virgo. I'm definitely getting the moony vibes, and like a little Virgoan reservation or humility shines through. And finally, Cilla Black. She had her Cancer rising, as well as Venus rising, and Lilith conjunct her rising, and a Pisces moon. And I think she might be like Kylie, another one that doesn't seem so Cancerian at first glance. So anyway, these are just some examples of Cancer rising eyes. I don't know, what do you guys think? Like, do you think the eyes are reliable to give us indications regarding someone's ascendant or rising? Does anyone watching have Cancer rising, or do you know a Cancer rising? Let us know what you found, and I hope anyway that you enjoyed this wee vid. Take care as always, and please do subscribe and thumbs up if you are so inclined, and see you next time. Mwah.